Hi everybody and welcome back to Enjoy English with Mrs. A. I'm Mrs. A and today we're going to look at some dialogue essentials. And this means all the necessary ingredients to make sure your dialogue sounds perfect. You know I specialize in official exams, so I'm going to do this from an official exam point of view. It's valid for your Cambridge, for your Escuela Oficial de Idiomas, for your IELTS, TOEFL, and so on and so forth. A successful dialogue needs to feel like tennis, needs to feel like there's interaction between the 2 or 3 candidates, because for Cambridge examinations, you are allowed to have your speaking exam with 1 or 2 other candidates, but it all must feel natural. It all must feel very interactive. To an extent, and attention here, to an extent, all dialogues usually include the same ingredients. Agreeing and disagreeing with your partner, asking questions, speculating, comparing and contrasting, of course. All of this without neglecting the proper use of linking words, smart adjectives, and specific vocabulary related to your topic, because that's what your examiners want to see. Some ways to agree with your partner are, I totally agree with you. So try and push yourself a bit more, a bit further. Don't just say, I agree. I agree. Always try to push yourself and try to juggle more expressions of agreement, such as, I totally agree with you. I feel the same way. I must admit you're right. I must say you're spot on. To be spot on is to be right, to be correct about something. Absolutely, I have to agree. For a B1, B2 level, these are absolutely fine. And I repeat, don't just say I agree, juggle, play around. Use more than one formula. If you have to disagree with somebody, remember that English is not a very direct language. So even if we disagree with somebody, we do it in a way that's, let's say, polite. Instead of being very direct, we would say, I see your point, but, or I must disagree, seeing that. I partly agree with you. This means you don't agree 100%. However is the formal way to say but. When you interrupt your partner, you can say, however, something, something. I don't feel that way. Nevertheless, we can see that. Here you can continue it however you want. Asking questions. Now, when it comes to asking questions, I must admit, I suffer. I suffer because all my students ask one question. Do you agree? And it's like a constant, do you agree? Do you agree? Don't you agree? Do you agree? Don't you agree? You can do better. You can do more. I'm not saying it's wrong asking for this sort of validation, but there are other options. Try to use something more than do you agree. Try to ask a question about something else, like how do you feel about, or what would you do if, or again, do you mind if I add something? Let's say if your partner has finished saying something and you still have more ideas to add. What's your take on, or what's your outlook on, instead of asking what's your opinion about? The idea behind any sort of dialogue is the interaction. The interaction between the 2 candidates, how comfortable they feel with each other. And that's partly one of the reasons why you can tell if 2 candidates met the date of the exam, or if they've been working and practicing these dialogues together, because they're much more natural if they had training, if they had practice together. Fortunately for Cambridge exams, you can choose your partner. As far as I know, you can choose your partner. You can go in, prepare the exam with a partner, and then go in with that same partner and sit through the oral exam together. It's not the same for Escuela Oficial de Idiomas, where, as far as I know, the dialogue is not done in groups. Another key ingredient for our dialogue, linking words. Don't forget them. Instead of saying and, you have a lot of options. Instead of saying but, you have a lot of options. Always try to use a variety of linking words. They're great. They're necessary to link your ideas together. Last but not least, adjectives. I know my students are very comfortable with 5 adjectives and they always hold on and use the same 5 adjectives over and over again to exhaustion. Now, this is not the way. You have to try and push yourself and use more. If it's the day of the exam, don't improvise. Make sure you play around and learn more adjectives before your exam. But instead of saying beautiful, you can say gorgeous or stunning. Adjectives like magnificent, substantial, enjoyable, they work everywhere with basically any topic, and you'll sound very good if you use these adjectives instead of pretty, nice, and so on and so forth. Speculating is a big part, especially when it comes to pictures where the people in the pictures may be doing one thing or another. And here are some ways you can speculate. Perhaps they are. Maybe she is going to. They seem worried about. They look like they're going. They must be. Sometimes it's not very clear what the person is doing in the picture. So this is when you have to speculate and say how the person looks, how you think they're feeling about something, what choice you think they'll make between 1, 2 options. And of course, last but not least, comparing and contrasting. Now, if you haven't watched my latest video on how to compare and contrast pictures, this is one you should watch because it's a more detailed explanation. Nevertheless, when comparing 2 activities, some activities can be dynamic versus sedentary, cheap versus expensive, stimulating for the body versus stimulating for the mind, popular among a specific age group, or for all ages. Have a look at 2 hobbies. Speak about the advantages and disadvantages of these hobbies. And here we have the hobbies. Student A. Here we have 2 pictures showing us different types of leisure activities. Do you think reading has any disadvantages? Student B. Well, I must say that reading is a sedentary activity, so it doesn't help you get fit like snowboarding does. On the other hand, it's much cheaper. What's your take on this? Student A. I totally agree with you. The only disadvantages snowboarding has, as far as I'm concerned, is that it's a seasonal sport, so you either wait or travel to do it. And you also need to buy or rent the special gear. What are the disadvantages of reading in your opinion? I believe reading helps you improve your vocabulary, especially if you are reading a book in a foreign language. Do you think that reading has any disadvantages? Student A. Maybe if you read novels at school instead of studying, that can be a disadvantage. Perhaps if all you do in your free time is read because you need your vitamin D. Student B. That's where I must disagree because you can also read in the park or outdoors. Student A. I see your point. So to conclude, snowboarding is great because you get all the adrenaline. It's dynamic and it keeps you fit. And reading helps you disconnect and improves your knowledge. Student B. That's right. They agree and disagree. They speak about advantages and disadvantages. They ask each other questions. They speculate about what's going on in the pictures. They're using adjectives. They're using linking words. They're comparing and contrasting and finally reaching a conclusion, which is something very important within the time you have for the speaking part. Now, I hope you enjoyed the lesson today and I'll see you all next week with a new video. Bye!